I spent 2 years saving for my dream vacation to Hawaii. As a software engineer working 60-hour weeks, I desperately needed this break. The resort was booked, the tours were paid for, and I was counting down the days until I could feel the sand between my toes. Then my parents called about my sister Victoria needing a vacation with her 3 kids. They assumed I would share my carefully planned getaway with them. I smiled and agreed, but little did they know this time would be different. If you are watching this video right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe for more family drama stories that will make yours seem normal. Growing up, Victoria was always the golden child in our family. She was 3 years older than me and excelled at everything she touched. Piano recitals, dance competitions, straight A report cards. My parents never missed a single one of her events, while they regularly skipped my soccer games because they had to drive Victoria to her ballet lessons. This pattern continued into adulthood, with my parents dropping everything whenever Victoria needed something. Victoria married young to her high school sweetheart James, and they quickly had 3 kids: Lily, age 10, twins; Mason and Mia, age 7. Her husband worked in finance while Victoria became a stay-at-home mom. Despite their comfortable dual-income lifestyle, my sister had a talent for creating emergencies that required family assistance, particularly financial assistance. When Victoria needed a down payment for her house, my parents drained their retirement account. When her car broke down, they bought her a new one. When I needed help with college tuition after losing my scholarship due to a broken leg, my parents said they were sorry, but they just did not have anything to spare. I ended up working 2 jobs while taking full class loads, often surviving on ramen noodles and coffee. I still remember my graduation day. My parents showed up 2 hours late because Lily had a cold and Victoria needed help. They missed my speech as valedictorian. That day, something changed in me. I realized I would always come second in their eyes. As I established my career in software engineering, I tried setting boundaries. When Victoria asked for money to renovate her kitchen, I politely declined. My parents called me selfish. When I missed a family gathering because of an important work deadline, I was guilt-tripped for weeks. Every attempt at establishing healthy boundaries was met with resistance and manipulation. Despite all this, I loved my family. I wanted their approval. I wanted to belong. And so the cycle continued with me, giving in more often than not. The Hawaii trip was supposed to be different. After a particularly brutal year at work where I led the development of our company flagship product, I was burned out and desperately needed a break. I started planning this vacation as a gift to myself, setting aside money from each paycheck for 2 whole years. I researched extensively to find the perfect resort on Maui, splurging on an ocean view room. I booked surfing lessons, a helicopter tour of the waterfalls, snorkeling at Molokini Crater, and a sunset dinner cruise. I even scheduled a full day to drive the road to Hana. Every detail was meticulously planned, from airport transfers to restaurant reservations. This was not just a vacation. It was a dream I had nurtured through countless overtime hours and working weekends. The trip had emotional significance, too. When I was 12, my father promised to take me to Hawaii after I won the state science fair. That trip never materialized because Victoria needed braces that same year. I told myself this trip would finally heal that old wound. I would finally do something just for me without family obligations overshadowing my joy. My friend Taylor was the only person I shared all the details with. We met in college and remained close despite living in different states now. During our weekly video calls, I would excitedly share updates about my planning process. "You deserve this trip more than anyone I know," Taylor told me during one of our calls. "Please promise me you will not let your family hijack this one thing you are doing for yourself." I promised, truly believing this time would be different. I even kept the exact dates vague when talking to my family, simply mentioning I was planning a vacation sometime next summer. I thought that would protect me from their interference. I could not have been more wrong. 3 months before my departure date, my parents invited me to Sunday dinner. This was not unusual. We tried to have family meals at least once a month. What was unusual was that Victoria and her family were there too, all looking suspiciously excited. My mother had prepared all my favorite foods, which should have been my first warning sign. She only did that when she wanted something from me. "We have a wonderful surprise," my father announced after dinner as we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. My mother clasped her hands together. "We know about your Hawaii trip in June." My stomach dropped. I had been careful not to share specific details with them. "How did you find out?" "Taylor mentioned it when we ran into her at the grocery store," my mother explained, not noticing my frown. "Taylor would never have volunteered this information. They must have pressed her for details. Victoria has been so stressed with the kids," my father continued, "and James has been working such long hours. We thought, would not it be wonderful if they could join you in Hawaii for a family vacation?" Victoria beamed at me from across the room, her 3 kids bouncing with excitement on the sofa beside her. "We already called the resort," my mother added proudly. "They were able to upgrade you to a 3-bedroom family suite instead of your single room. Is not that wonderful? We paid the difference as our gift to you and Victoria." I sat there stunned as Victoria children squealed about swimming with dolphins and building sandcastles. My carefully planned solo retreat was transforming before my eyes into a family vacation that revolved around 3 hyperactive children and their entitled mother. "The activities you planned sound great," Victoria said, scrolling through her phone. "Though we might need to adjust some of them to be more kid-friendly. The helicopter tour might be too scary for Mason, and the road to Hana would be too long for the kids to sit in a car." My parents were looking at me expectantly, waiting for my excited and grateful response. I felt trapped. If I objected, I would be the villain who denied his sister and her children a much-needed vacation. If I agreed, my own vacation would be ruined. "This is quite a surprise," I managed to say, my voice tight. "Let me think about the logistics." "What logistics?" Victoria laughed. "It is all arranged. The kids are so excited already. You cannot possibly back out now." My father patted my shoulder. "Your sister really needs this break, son. You are single, with no responsibilities. Victoria has 3 children to care for every day. You can take a solo vacation anytime." That comment stung. My father had effectively dismissed all my hard work and careful planning as trivial compared to the needs of his golden daughter. Once again, my feelings did not matter. I nodded and smiled through the rest of the evening, but inside I was seething. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I could not sleep. I paced the floor, anger and resentment building with each step. At midnight, I called Taylor. "They did what she exclaimed after I explained the situation." "That is absolutely not okay. Please tell me you stood up for yourself." I just sat there, I admitted, ashamed. I did not know what to say. "This is exactly what you promised would not happen," Taylor reminded me. "You need to call them tomorrow and tell them no. This is your vacation that you saved for. You are not responsible for providing Victoria with a free Hawaiian family vacation. You do not understand how they are," I sighed. "If I say no, I will never hear the end of it. And if you say yes, you will be miserable on a trip you spent 2 years saving for," Taylor countered. Which is worse. She was right, but the thought of the confrontation made my stomach churn. We talked for another hour, with Taylor helping me draft what I might say to my family. After we hung up, I lay awake thinking about Hawaii. The peaceful beaches I had imagined now seemed overrun with screaming children and family drama. Just before falling asleep, a new thought occurred to me. Maybe there was a third option I had not considered yet. In the weeks that followed, my frustration grew exponentially. Victoria seemed to take my silence as enthusiastic agreement and began texting me daily with requests and suggestions for the trip. "The kids want to visit the aquarium. Can you add that to the itinerary? Mason is afraid of the ocean. Can we stay at a hotel with a good pool instead? Lily is a picky eater. Can you make sure all the restaurants you booked have chicken fingers?" My parents called regularly too, suggesting more family-friendly activities and reminding me how important this trip was for Victoria. "She does so much for her children," my mother said during one call. She deserves this vacation more than anyone. The final blow came when Victoria called to tell me she had invited her new boyfriend along. "Wait, new boyfriend, what happened to James?" "Oh, James and I separated 2 months ago," Victoria said, casually, as if this was common knowledge. "Did Mom not tell you?" "Anyway, I have been seeing this great guy, Brad. He is wonderful with the kids, and he has never been to Hawaii either. I hope you do not mind that I invited him." I was speechless. Not only had my solo vacation turned into a family trip with 3 children, but now I was also expected to vacation with my sister newly dating relationship. Before I could formulate a response, Victoria continued. "Oh, and since the suite only has 3 bedrooms, you would not mind taking the pull-out couch in the living room, right? Brad and I will need privacy, and the kids should each have their own space so they do not fight." That was the moment something snapped inside me. Not only had they hijacked my vacation, changed all my carefully made plans, and invited people I did not even know, but now I was expected to sleep on a couch during my own vacation that I had paid for, all so Victoria could have privacy with her new boyfriend. "Let me get back to you on that," I said flatly before ending the call. I immediately called my travel agent, Jessica. I had worked with her to book all the original arrangements, and I trusted her expertise. "Is there any way to cancel my Hawaii reservation?" I asked when she picked up. "You are canceling your trip?" Jessica sounded surprised. "You were so excited about it." I explained the situation, not holding back any details about my family situation. Jessica listened sympathetically. "You can cancel with a partial refund," she finally said. "You would lose your deposit on the room and some of the activities, but not everything." "What if I wanted to go somewhere else instead? Somewhere completely different?" I asked, an idea forming. "That could definitely work," Jessica said, her voice perking up. "What did you have in mind?" "Somewhere my family would never think to follow me. Somewhere far away, maybe not as family-friendly. I need a real escape." We spent the next hour discussing options. Bali kept coming up in our conversation. It was exotic, affordable, and offered the perfect mix of adventure and relaxation. By the end of the call, I had a new plan. Jessica would keep my Hawaii reservation active while simultaneously booking me a trip to Bali for the exact same dates. "Are you sure about this?" Jessica asked before we hung up. "Your family is going to be very upset." "I am sure," I said, feeling more confident than I had in weeks. "This vacation is for me. It is time my family learned that." The next step was preparing myself emotionally for the inevitable confrontation. I scheduled an appointment with my therapist, Dr. Martinez, whom I had been seeing occasionally to deal with family-related stress. "What you are describing is a pattern of emotional manipulation," Dr. Martinez told me during our session. "Your feelings and needs have been consistently dismissed in favor of your sister." "So you think I am justified in going to Bali instead?" I asked. "This is not about justification," Dr. Martinez replied. "This is about recognizing that your needs matter too. You are allowed to prioritize yourself, especially when it comes to something you have worked hard for and saved for." We spent the rest of the session role-playing potential responses to the guilt trips and accusations I would likely face. Dr. Martinez helped me prepare phrases I could repeat to myself when my resolve wavered. My needs matter. I am not responsible for Victoria's happiness. I deserve this trip. As the departure date approached, I meticulously documented all my expenses for the Hawaii trip, creating a detailed breakdown of what I had paid for. I also prepared a folder with all the reservation details that my family would need. I was not heartless. I would not leave them stranded, even though part of me felt they deserved it. I also built up my support network, explaining the situation to close friends who would be available by phone if I needed moral support during or after the confrontation. Taylor promised to be on standby the entire day, and my college roommate Michael offered to drive me to the airport, so I would not have to deal with family pressure right up to the security gate. With my Bali tickets booked, my support system in place, and my resolve strengthened, all that remained was to reveal my plan to my family. I decided to wait until the last possible moment to minimize the time they would have to try to change my mind. The morning of our supposed departure for Hawaii arrived. As planned, my family showed up at my apartment at 7:00 a.m., everyone's luggage in tow. They were supposed to meet me there so we could all ride to the airport together in the large SUV my father had rented. Victoria kids immediately began running around my usually peaceful apartment, touching everything and asking a million questions. Mason knocked over a chess set I kept on my coffee table, pieces scattering across the floor. Victoria barely glanced up from her phone. "Sorry we are a bit late," my mother said, hugging me. Victoria had trouble getting the kids organized this morning, but we are all here now and ready for Hawaii. My father clapped me on the shoulder. "All packed and ready, son, the rental car is downstairs." That is when they noticed my luggage. Instead of the beachy blue suitcase set I had purchased specifically for Hawaii, I had a single large backpack and a carry-on-sized roller bag. "That does not look like enough for 2 weeks in Hawaii," my mother said, frowning. "Did you ship some bags ahead?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment. "I am not going to Hawaii with you." The room went silent, even Victoria children sensing the sudden tension. "What do you mean?" Victoria asked, finally looking up from her phone. "Of course you are coming to Hawaii. Everything is booked. You all are still going to Hawaii," I clarified. "I have paid for the family suite. I have paid for all the activities, though I have modified some to be more appropriate for the kids. All the reservations are in this folder." I handed the folder to my stunned father. "But I will not be joining you." "This is ridiculous," my mother sputtered. "Where will you be if not with us in Hawaii? I am going on my own vacation. Somewhere else." Victoria's face flushed red. "You cannot do this. The kids have been looking forward to this trip with their uncle for months. They will be devastated." As if on cue, Lily began to cry. The twins looked confused, looking back and forth between their mother and me. "You have had months to tell them I might not be there," I pointed out. "Instead, you all made assumptions and plans without consulting me. You changed my dream vacation into something that would have made me miserable. So you are just abandoning us," my father demanded. "After we went to all this trouble." "All what trouble?" I asked, incredulously. "You made a phone call to change my reservation. I am the one who spent 2 years saving. I am the one who planned everything. I am the one paying for most of it." "But Brad already took time off work," Victoria wailed. "What am I supposed to tell him? I do not even know Brad," I replied calmly. "He was never part of my vacation plans." My mother approached me, her expression shifting to the guilt-inducing look I knew so well. "Your sister really needs this vacation. She has been through so much with the separation. The kids need this too. How can you be so selfish?" There it was, the selfish card. For years that word had the power to make me fall in line. But not today. "I am not being selfish for wanting to enjoy the vacation I planned and paid for," I said firmly. "What is selfish is expecting me to give up my dream trip, sleep on a couch and babysit 3 children so Victoria can have romantic time with her new boyfriend." My phone buzzed. It was Michael texting that he was downstairs waiting to drive me to the airport. "I have to go now," I said, picking up my bags. "My flight leaves in 3 hours. "What about our flight?" my father demanded. "Your flight to Hawaii leaves at noon." "You have plenty of time," I replied. "All the details are in the folder, including the confirmation number for the rental car I booked for you in Maui." Victoria's phone rang. It was Brad. She stepped aside to talk to him, undoubtedly to tell him about the drama unfolding. I could hear her saying, "He is ruining everything like he always does." As I headed for the door, my mother grabbed my arm. "If you walk out that door, do not expect to be welcomed back into this family." I looked at her, truly looked at her perhaps for the first time, seeing the manipulative pattern that had defined our relationship for decades. "I will always love you, Mom. All of you. But I cannot keep setting myself on fire to keep Victoria warm. I have paid for your entire Hawaiian vacation as my gift to you. I have arranged everything so you can still have a wonderful time, but I need to do this for myself. You are breaking your sister's heart, my father said, his voice low and angry. After everything we have done for you. That comment stopped me at the door. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? You missed my graduation to help Victoria. You helped her with a house down payment while I worked 2 jobs through college. You have consistently chosen her over me at every turn. So tell me, what have you done for me that should make me give up my dream vacation? The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria had returned and was watching with her mouth slightly open. Even the children were quiet, sensing the gravity of the moment. That is what I thought, I said softly. I hope you all have a wonderful time in Hawaii. I really do. The folder has my contact information if there is a genuine emergency. Otherwise, I will see you when I get back. With that, I walked out the door, leaving my stunned family behind. Michael was waiting in his car, and as I threw my bags in the back seat, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For perhaps the first time in my adult life I had chosen myself. The flight to Bali was long, but I did not mind. Each mile that carried me away from my family drama felt liberating. I spent the time reading, watching movies, and most importantly, not checking my phone. I had told Michael and Taylor how to reach me in case of a true emergency, but otherwise I was unplugged. Stepping off the plane in Denpasar, I was hit with the warm, fragrant air of Bali. Palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze. And even in the airport, I could see elements of the unique Balinese culture in the architecture and decorations. This was worlds away from the family-friendly resorts of Hawaii. I had booked a private villa near Ubud, the cultural heart of Bali. It was set amidst rice terraces, with a small private pool and an outdoor shower surrounded by tropical plants. The first morning, I woke up to the sounds of birds and distant gamelan music. No screaming children, no family demands, just peace. My days took on a rhythm dictated only by my own desires. I took a cooking class and learned to make traditional Balinese dishes. I hired a guide who took me on a trek through the jungle to see hidden waterfalls. I visited ancient temples and participated in a traditional purification ceremony. I rented a motorbike and explored the winding roads of the island at my own pace, stopping whenever something caught my eye. In the evenings, I often found myself at small local restaurants or beach bars where I met other travelers. There was Emma from Australia, who was on a similar journey of self-discovery after leaving a toxic relationship. There was Luis from Brazil, who taught me to surf on the beaches of Kuta. There was a group of friends from Germany who invited me to join them for a boat trip to the Gili Islands where we snorkeled with sea turtles. These new friends respected my boundaries in a way my family never had. When I mentioned I needed a day to myself, they understood without question or guilt trips. When I shared parts of my family story, they validated my feelings rather than dismissing them. For the first time in years, possibly ever, I felt truly free to be myself without apology. Of course, reality could not be held at bay forever. About halfway through my trip, I finally turned on my phone to check for important emails. The flood of notifications was overwhelming. Dozens of missed calls from my parents and Victoria. Angry voicemails. Text messages ranging from guilt-inducing to outright hostile. There were also several posts on Victoria's social media accounts portraying me as the villain who had abandoned his poor sister and her children. Some people are so selfish they would rather travel alone than help family in need, read one particularly pointed post, accompanied by a photo of her children looking sad on a Hawaiian beach. I was tempted to respond to defend myself publicly. But Dr. Martinez's words came back to me. You do not need to justify your choices to people who have never respected them. So I simply turned off notifications for Victoria's social accounts and continued enjoying my vacation. What surprised me were the messages from extended family members. My cousin Rachel, who had always been close to Victoria, sent me a supportive text. About time you stood up for yourself. Enjoy your trip. You deserve it. My uncle Robert, my father-brother, called to tell me he was proud of me for setting boundaries. Your dad and Victoria have always had a blind spot when it comes to how they treat you, he said. Maybe this will be a wake-up call. Most unexpected was an email from James' Victoria's ex-husband. I experienced the same treatment from Victoria and your parents during our marriage, he wrote. It takes courage to break that cycle. Stay strong. These messages reinforced that I was not crazy or selfish for wanting boundaries. Other people had seen the dynamic too. A week before I was due to return home, my parents attempted reconciliation. My mother called while I was having breakfast at a seaside cafe in Jimbaran. We miss you, she said, her voice softer than I had heard it in years. Hawaii has not been the same without you. I miss you too, I replied honestly, but I needed this time for myself. Your father and I have been talking, she continued. Maybe we have not always been as fair to you as we could have been. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever received from her. We talked for nearly an hour, and while there were no dramatic admissions or promises of complete change, there was a new tone of respect in her voice. Victoria, on the other hand, maintained that I had ruined her vacation. Brad was miserable because he felt unwelcome, she texted. And the kids kept asking where you were. I replied simply, I am sorry they were disappointed. I hope you still managed to enjoy Hawaii. Then I muted the conversation and went back to enjoying my final days in Bali. Returning home was harder than I expected. After 3 weeks of freedom and self-determination, facing my old life and family dynamics was jarring. But I returned a different person than the one who had left. The first family dinner after my return was tense. Victoria refused to speak to me directly, instead making passive-aggressive comments to the table at large. My father was cordial but distant. My mother tried too hard to pretend everything was normal. When Victoria started complaining about how difficult her life was, waiting for everyone to rush in with offers of help as usual, I simply listened politely without volunteering. When my father mentioned that Victoria Carr needed expensive repairs, I nodded sympathetically but did not offer to help pay for it. You have changed, my mother said to me, as I helped her clean up after dinner. I have, I agreed. I needed to. Over the following months, my relationships with my family slowly transformed. There were difficult conversations, particularly with my father, who struggled the most with my new boundaries. We are family, he would say. Family helps each other. I am still willing to help, I would respond. But it needs to be reciprocal, and I need to be asked, not expected to sacrifice automatically. Victoria and I developed a more distant relationship. Without my constant acquiescence to her demands, she found less reason to include me in her life. It hurt, but I recognized it as evidence that our prior relationship had been based more on what I could do for her than on genuine sibling affection. My relationship with her children actually improved. Without the pressure to be a free babysitter, I could be a fun uncle on my own terms. I took them to movies or the zoo individually, getting to know each as their own person rather than as a collective burden. With my parents, there was gradual progress. My mother made efforts to ask about my life and interests in a way she never had before. My father and I found new common ground in his retirement woodworking hobby, spending weekends on projects that had nothing to do with Victoria or family obligations. More importantly, my relationships outside the family flourished. I became more available to friends like Taylor and Michael, who had always supported me but had often taken a back seat to family emergencies. I started dating more seriously, no longer subconsciously avoiding commitment, because I was already emotionally overextended with my family. At work, I set better boundaries around my time and energy, which ironically led to a promotion as my quality of work improved with better work-life balance. I continued seeing Dr. Martinez monthly, working through the deep-seated patterns that had defined most of my life. The most profound change was internal. I learned that setting boundaries was not selfish but necessary. I discovered that saying no to some people meant being able to say a more genuine yes to others. I realized that true family supports your growth rather than exploits your loyalty. Looking back on that pivotal moment when I walked out of my apartment with my backpack, instead of joining my family in Hawaii, I recognized it as the moment I began truly living for myself instead of for the approval of others. That decision changed everything. So, if you find yourself constantly sacrificing your own needs for others who never seem to reciprocate, remember that boundaries are not walls to keep people out, but guidelines for how you deserve to be treated. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to say no and honor your own journey. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your own needs and family expectations? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more real-life family stories. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message about setting boundaries, share this video with them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your happiness matters too.